Welcome back, everybody, to Connect, Share, Prosper. I'm Chris Angel, your co-host, here with Chaz Wilson, CEO of Master Networks, and your host, Chaz.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. Here we go. Episode 5.
Let's do it.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the bond method for building relationships and primarily focusing on building on common interests, right? That's the key. That's where it all starts, is building on that foundation, that common interest.
Yeah. What's the biggest downfall when you see, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Build on a common interest, but then we get into the game called networking and meeting people, and then we our wheels fall off.
Yeah. So let me actually put some context to where we came up with this and why build on a common interest. It actually goes back to what I talked about in 5+1, which was one of the worst lunches that I've ever had. A young man, and it's not his fault really, but it was. And it was because he invited me out to eat. I'm sure he was a business banker. His boss probably told him, look, go out, network, build relationships. He saw us as a big company, as a business banker. He's like, oh man, I want to get this account. So finally the staff is like, please just take this guy to lunch. So I go in. It's really like from the time we walk in the door, it is all about cars. I mean, I don't even think you could take a breath. And it was all about cars. And the reality for me is I'm not a car guy. Yeah. So it really didn't mean much to me. And, he spilled food on me. It was just this mess. You can read about it in the book for those listening. But I left that meeting. And as we were getting up to leave, he said the magic words, right? Let's do this again. There's no way I'm doing this again.
Yeah.
But the key was I went back to the office and I said, okay, I had been taught this acronym FORD or FORM or, it started family, occupation, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I said, that's not really how I network. It's not how I built these relationships. So I want to get clear about this. For me, family wasn't necessarily the place I started, and I'm pretty personal. Yeah. I don't know that gives somebody the right to ask me about my family right out of the gate. So when we say build on common interest, it's very broad. It's very general. I get that, but that's really where the skill comes in to say, I need to be looking for what I can build on. Yeah. I'll give you another quick example on this, Chris, because I demoed this last week. I got a speaking opportunity with a title company, their monthly sales meeting. They asked me to come in and be kind of a keynote speaker trainer for them. And one of the first things I did is I got up in front of the room, introduced myself, and I said there was 2 people in the room that had heard me speak before. And so I quickly said, I believe that the 2 of you over here have heard me speak before. And they raised their hand. Yes, I have. And I said, quickly, where was it at? Right. And I drew out of them that bond of building on the common. They'd heard me before to tie everyone else into that group. So it's really a skill of building on that. And that's why it's so broad, right?
Yeah, I would say, you tell me if you have a different opinion about this, but I feel like one of the master skills, I keep saying master skill. I feel like one of the skills that's really important to master is asking questions.
Yes.
That is it.
Well, the power of the answers and the power of the question, right? And so what I'm digging on learning how to ask questions. Right. But there's an interesting other component to this that I often see a mistake that happens. Either I'm on the receiving end of this or I've observed it in these. It's the ability to communicate, right? To build on your common interests. That's what you're talking about. But what I also see people do is it doesn't necessarily mean you have to tie every response into you. For example, let's say you and I were building on common interest and you said, hey, I'm in the real estate game. Oh, I was in the real estate game too. It's the me too kind of thing that comes up every single time. It becomes draining to the person. So that is not a good practice.
Yeah. Can we take that to an intermediate to an advanced level? So at the very foundation, at the basic level, if you're new to this, you're like, hey, what do you do? And what are you interested in? And I say, I like kayaking. You're like, oh, that's amazing. Where do you kayak? And that's the base level. But at an intermediate to an advanced level, how do we start to ask and listen for commonality, or how do we pull that in so it's not just a me too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's here's what I always say: stay curious. Truly be curious about the person. I think curiosity leads you down paths that help you build on those common interests. You're asking a lot of questions to find where there's commonality, and then I think the second thing is, number one, be genuine, right? I guess I said the second thing, but be genuine. Yep. In that curiosity, truly ask those questions. And I think that will lead you on a better path.
I remember, you and I come from a similar background in terms of real estate and where we were. I always remember, and I loved this from a consulting perspective of going 3 deep. If you ask 3 layers deep, it's what do you like? I like kayaking. Okay, great. Ask another question before you say me too. Go, well, where do you kayak? And then maybe another question is like, who do you kayak with? But like, keep digging
right
under their answer.
No, exactly. And then that's where you actually might find you have more in common on the second level than you did the first question, right? And
yeah, totally.
And dig through those things. I mean, you just did it actually when you asked me the question. You just said we both come from a real estate background, right? It becomes that skill that it almost becomes a natural thing. People say it, but it's not. You've practiced that skill in interviewing people. Right. You're bonding over these interviews.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a natural thing for you to say, here's what we have in common.
Do you think that sometimes people don't go deeper in questions because in their head they're trying to figure out like, where do I go next? And what do like they're not present in the conversation because they're rehearsing stuff in their head.
Yeah, it's interesting. Covey's habits begin with the end in mind. I think sometimes we go right, we're going, where's this going to end? Where's this going? How are we going to get there? It's okay to begin with the end in mind, but I think it's important to stay present with what you're talking about. This foundation, sometimes people ask me, they say, how long does it take to build on a common interest? There is no timetable. It could take, I've had other, authors, speakers come into the office, we've met, and in 5 minutes, we've bonded really well.
Yep.
And others, it might take 2 or 3 times to get together to really build on those common interests. But here's the crucial thing, Chris, I hope that people pick up on this. You cannot move too quickly through this. You're at risk if you move too quickly. You can move fast if that foundation's built, but if it's not, and you try to move into occupation needs and developing opportunities quick, which most people that come off, often you hear the word slimy or commission breath, right? It's because they went right to develop opportunity without building.
Yeah, there's definitely a feeling, like I can feel it when somebody does that to me. I can feel it in my body, like my guard goes up because I'm like, they're asking me for stuff. I feel like they have an agenda,
right?
And you got to be sensitive to people's body language and not push that too fast, too soon if they're not ready for that.
Yeah. Again, if we're taking this from someone we're trying to build a relationship with, think about it with the significant people in your life.
Yeah.
You cannot go too fast through that building on common interest. Now, the reason, again, if I go circle back to what you asked me at the beginning on a common interest, the reason why it was so broad is it got me thinking about networking when I go to events. I think of large conferences that I go to. How do I build on anything in common except for the fact that we're at the same event at the same time?
Yeah, good point.
So simply I can go up to somebody and say, hey, Chris, what do you think of this last speaker? Or, hey, my name's Chaz. What's your name? We introduce it. Hey, what do you think of that last guy that just spoke?
Yeah.
Something like that at least gives you something to build on and build from.
Right. I also think that it's easy to push things fast if you feel like this is the only time I'm ever going to see you. So if your entire end game is I've got to make something happen in this moment or it's a wasted opportunity, then it's going to be easy for you to rush the bonding connection process. But if you could just chill and sit back in the strategy of relationship and know that if this is really going to be a relationship that makes a difference for you, it's not going to be a one-time interaction.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point. I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking of the last maybe 6 to 8 people that have reached out to try to have a face-to-face meeting with me. And we get a ton of requests, right? Only just because I think there's a handful of people that want to sell me something, and there's a handful of people that genuinely want to get to know if there's an opportunity together.
Yeah.
That's the key, is right out of the gate. If I meet them at a chapter meeting or I meet them somewhere, they stop by the office and they say, hey, I'd love an opportunity for us to get together because I think my product, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh my gosh, I see that a mile away. If it's more like, hey, I'd love to get to know you. I love what you're doing. And I'm wondering if there's opportunities for us to, for me to help you grow. It comes from contribution than commission. And that's the key.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a patience to relationship. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like when you understand this is about relationship and not about what you can get out of the interaction, then you can have the patience. You can conjure the patience to stick it out and keep adding value to people until there's an opportunity to a way to create opportunity.
Yeah. One last point on this, though, I think as you talked about beginner, intermediate, and advanced, I've done this for so many years that I find that there are people who are very skilled at this, who are also advanced, and we move quickly through bond.
Yeah.
It's like you and I have done that. You and I have done this fast, right? And so some might look at this and go, we only met a couple months ago.
Right.
And that's fast. to some people? Well, that's because you and I have practiced this skill. We can build on things in common and along the way and build those bonds.
Yeah.
Where somebody maybe that I sense is newer at this, I got to go a little slower and build that relationship. So yeah, patience is really good.
I love it. Anything else you'd want to add, Chaz, to this episode 5 about building on common interests?
It is the first step. So we've got to master this skill. And I believe it is a skill. I believe it's learned, it's taught. And I think it's becoming lost. I mean, I don't think even people know how to start this conversation. How do I start in this?
Yeah.
I mean, look at young people right now. They're challenged to build on common interests right out of the gate. And so this is a skill that don't overlook this skill to be able to connect and build on common interests right out of the gate.
That's so good. I love it. Chaz, if people listening to this want to learn more about Master Networks, they're not already a member, where can they learn more about Master Networks? Yeah,
go to masternetworks.com. You can search for chapters that we have available. Areas where we're launching, and if there's not a chapter in your area, don't let that stop you. Reach out to us. We have virtual success coaches here who can help you launch a Master Networks chapter to grow your network.
Awesome. I love it. Chaz, another great episode of Connect, Share, Prosper, and I look forward to talking to you in episode 6 on team building and how do we build a team around it.
That's it.
Thanks, Chaz.
Thanks, Chris.